Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to today's episode. Before I begin, I gotta find this picture. There we go. Today's episode is dedicated to an idea I noticed that is going around in our world, and the idea I feel people don't know how to look at it, maybe. And I feel ultimately the wisdom of what we are doing in this world has to do with our attention. That means you could be a human being anywhere in the world, in any circumstance, good, bad, easy, hard, whatever. Your attention is what is being piloted. That means in this world, and this is something that people who speak openly, like in public and whatnot, the people who speak know this, because when a person speaks, you are piloting another person's attention. And during that piloting, a landscape, a picture is arising. So speech is a way of actually sharing the film behind your eyes in front of it, or to behind the eyes of someone else, to the inner realms of another person. That means this talk is, there's some activity going on behind my eyes, I begin speaking, and suddenly this activity has a way to be bridged into other inner universes of others. So the picture that I was looking for, I found it here. If people can look at just the picture of the video, there's another picture I'm going to overlay on top of that. And there we go. I remember when I was a kid, there was something called a Game Boy. And in it, wild Pokemon appeared, right? And I would say in today's modern world, because we're so knowledge-centric, I would say, we're so known-centric, focused on what is specifically known, gurus like Pokemon are just appearing out of the wilderness. And I feel this world doesn't need gurus. For me, the student-teacher idea is it served its algorithm. Now it is not a student-teacher situation anymore, right? And I'll get back to how back in the day the implication, what was the implication of a guru or a disciple, and what was a transmission? Because some ideas, they made sense back in the day when they were open to through a specific cultural value. Nowadays, if the cultural value is not there, it's as if someone who has no idea what the idea of Santa is and wants to celebrate Christmas. Do you know? So in today's modern world, what is happening with gurus, it is literally people are looking for something outside of them to move what is inside of them, which can only move from within. That means I would say this is the major rule, the biggest rule in this world I have found. I would say one of the biggest observations of my life. You might not believe it. There was a time in my life where I was a person who I was lazy. And in that laziness at school, like when it came to work, and I wouldn't care to solve problems with my own intelligence. I would just see what others had done, and I'd be like, okay, you know. Then life takes you to a point where you are alone with the universe. And in those moments, it teaches your own power to you. That means we all, human beings, we need energy, correct? And as we need energy, we ideologically contain it. And so you can say that just the thought of the outer realm guru, the outer teacher, is just an authorization for an inner state. That means sometimes I often wonder this, that if the mind is not an object, what is it doing with objects? It's a permission. That means if the person saw a guru in front of their eyes, that would be something. Then, and then if they saw a guru in a dream state, imagine you saw an enlightened being, you saw like, I don't know, there's many people, I've personally in some of my dreams have seen figures in the outer realms and from the outer realms in history. And in those experiences, in one case, the guru is an object pointing to the mystery beyond the subject. In the other case, the guru is a subject that is the mystery beyond the object. There's a picture I need to show the audience. It is of a very important person in history who is considered, this person is considered to be the author of the Bhagavad Gita and also the Mahabharata, Rishi Vyasa. I want to show you a picture of him that is depicted. And in this picture, a person can see that the psychology of human life transcends just language, and it transcends even objects, you know. There's so much about the world we don't know. Like these talks of mine, I feel I'm scratching the surface of infinity. There we go. This picture of Rishi Vyasa, there we go. If people can see it in the photo I've put on the, what do you call it, the wallpaper, that's Rishi Vyasa. Rishi Vyasa, I don't know who his disciple is, I think that's his son. But Rishi Vyasa was pretty much, he was a prince, he was legit like a prince, but he wasn't the prince in line. And so I believe he renounces his life in the kingdom, and he comes to the forest and lives as a liberated sage. And here he's giving a transmission, and what that means is look at his hand. His hand's like, it's all okay, man. It's all okay. I'm just showing you what's in the inner realms. Yeah. The fascinating thing I would say about just the human being, guys, anybody who's listening, is that the brain is a room that we don't have access to, in the sense that what we know is there is what is expressed from there. That means a person could be, imagine we were all entered this life and we were like a statue. Everything was like a photo. Life was like a photo that didn't move. We wouldn't know. We wouldn't know what the brain is if we couldn't move. You see, it's our movement that allows us to not be just in one point of reference. When there's more points of reference, it becomes dual. That means the moment we move, there is truth and falsehood. If we are still in silence, there is no discrimination. There is no secondary of deviation from how the first was, if I can say that. And look at this picture. Even a peacock is like, yo, is this some next level energy? The peacock has even noticed something's going on. And I would say this honestly. We are human beings, a bunch of creatures on a rock. 4.5 billion years in the making is our greatest assumption, I would say, or prediction. I shouldn't say prediction. I should say it's our most material based theory. Time is actually matter's greatest invention to divide itself dimensionally. That means, imagine when there was no time, nobody was late to work, Nobody didn't have enough time. Like there were no regrets at the end of the person's life that, oh my God, I didn't have enough time. Because what? The concept of time, imagine it didn't exist. We are creatures that honestly, if we had no ideology, we would live fine. But because we're conditioned to be a name and a character in a story, this character in the story has a reliance, has a dependence on all the systems that are in place. It's kind of like you've think of it this way. Think of it this way. A child is born, the child is dressed up, but it's dressed up in ideology. But imagine it's just like clothing. The child is dressed up, then the child grows up, and suddenly at the age of, let's say, I don't know, what is it? Like at the age of 6, at some point, okay, let's say older than 6. Let's say the child, okay, this is hilarious. In certain shamanic cultures, they had this thing where children were born and they would keep them in the darkness of a cave without letting the child leave the house for 18 years. After 18 years, the child would leave the house, even though a bit deformed and all that, because it was a primitive thing. These tribes did, certain shamanic tribes did. But anyways, the child would leave after 18 years, the darkness of that room, and would suddenly notice the beauty of light. That means how many people are grateful for just the light in their eyes? I would say not many people. So imagine a child, a human being born into the system of this world, suddenly wakes up already dressed in a certain way, right? That's conditioning. So mysticism, meditation, all these aims towards the novelty that can't be sold. I remember hearing a quote from Manly P. Hall in one of his lectures where he was like, love cannot be bartered, bought, or sold. Bought, bartered, or sold. Something like that. That really, when it comes to nature, what guru? When it comes to every human being honest with themselves, every being is being first. We are being. The being, it's as if like, what is existence is guru, if we're all part of existence. And you see, it's inert. This is the grand revelation, I would say, of the era of advanced communication and beyond the year 2020. That human beings are waking up from masks that they never had to wear. This doesn't mean ideological battle. This doesn't mean the person dismisses one ideology and they feel identified with another. Yay, in any situation, it's so easy. Point a bad guy and everybody fights the bad guy. Like, do you see what I mean? So the mind of the human being, the true leaders of humanity in the future, their hearts should not just be leading ordered beings. Do you see it? It's a balance of chaos and order. It's as if the advanced communicator recruited chaos and order rather than finding one side. Pretty much, guys, the term advanced communicator, in the way I'm using it now, is just anybody who cares for the advanced civilization. Because that would be the ultimate advancement of communication on the outer realms. Human beings are honestly a conscious movement of a movement that is so vast that it stretches to our unconscious. That means it's as if somebody said, hey man, what's happening in your life? And the person suddenly looked at their life and they realized, how could their life be inseparable with the events of everything else that is happening? That means my tonality, my mood of even giving this talk is dependent on the color of the sky. I don't know if people notice this, but just the view, the image, the tone, I don't know how to say it. it's like the color tonality has a correlation, is proportional to the speaker, any auditor, like any vocal tone, like vocal tone. There's something about the light in our eyes that really suggests there's even something to say, really. That means if we were all in a dark room and we could speak, there would still be nothing to talk about. That means in a dark room, 8 billion beings, imagine in a dark room, there was no light, we would all be like, there would be no word scientist, there would only be philosopher, maybe. If the species had lived and suddenly everything went pitch black in the cosmos. I feel, yes, in one view, it could be that certain human beings have zoomed in like a camera lens and are noticing a totally different way that consciousness can behave to itself or be something before it can have something. But I would say that very few people on this planet have the courage, I honestly feel this, have the courage to actually not doubt everything into nihilism, but to actually wonder if everything was wrong. The only, I would say, the only psychological position in history that has been occupied, that the only inner realm fearlessness I've seen is from mystics. After mystics, it comes to philosophers. After philosophers, it comes psychologists. And the sociologist has a little inkling of, wait, there's something more than the cultural dimension and the human dimension, and the scientist, of course, how dare you say anything other than call us an animal. So there's something where it's like we may appear as an animal, but we're not behaving like an animal, like any animal we have seen. When I see my own behavior, I'm like, no creature in nature exists that's given a podcast right now like this, with this title, with this name, with this da-da-da, The era of advanced communication means you're done. You're done with chasing truth that you can't see already being. That's the nature of things. That means a person at some point in this life will get promises, get tired of promises. I saw this. And I had this strange vision that I was like, you don't know how many people throughout the years have just come to me and they're like, why are you giving free talks? I'm not joking. Even people close to me, And you know why I would say the motivation is there? Is because what is being sold, what is being deemed, given a monetary value now is nothing compared to the future. We are selling snake oil, if we're selling anything at all, philosophically speaking, when the future is coming. But society and culture, of course, needs to survive, just like how people in this world need to survive. Yes, nations need to survive, and this is why there's still hope for capitalism's evolution. This is the rule. You survive alone, you may succeed. But every individual dies. It is only the collective that remains. That means I totally even understand, like pass down the lineage and whatnot, let us continue the genetical human empire. But I at the same time feel that in a world where people should be new, they are repeating too many algorithms from the past. So what kind of advice can you tell a world that is trying to look good to the past when the future is still waiting? It's as if shame, shame, shame. The past made you not see you were here to change. And this is a thing where in my own psychology it's an alarm, because for me there's, when a species of clones is I don't want to say it's disgusting, but it's like, it's as if it's missing out. It's as if a person went to this garden and there were so many different kinds of plants growing and so many different kinds of flowers in this orchard. And suddenly the person's like, no, I'm a lion. All the flowers should be dandelions, you know? And all the flowers just become dandelions. Every flower you see that's not a dandelion, destroy it. Wrong knowledge. Strange, weird, ignorant, insane. Cut the flowers that don't look the same. Madness. Yet we live in it. And so I am telling you, it's as if I think even the advanced communicator, it's an urge. It's like a slingshot. For years, the inner realms have been building momentum, but the outer realms are slow. So what happens is technically the mind has overfilled the body because of this information age. The mind is acting like a god in its own body. And people are not suffering because they don't have, they're suffering because they're not gods to themselves 24/7. And I'm telling you, even the divine, even gods can have egos. It doesn't mean truth is accessible. You know, it's as if it's like, it's having an ego and chasing truth, being an individual and seeking a truth beyond the individual. It's kind of like punching someone and not expecting to get punched back. You know, that means it's something that's taken. That means it's as if we feel it's like there is nothing. It's all free. Existence is free. I was just born here. I have no responsibility. Free will. You know, I could choose to go in the corner of somewhere and just rot away, or I could choose to go and run at a really fast speed in this world. You see, to add a dimension to this from strategy, Sun Tzu in The Art of War speaks about the balance between heaven and earth. These are forces. That means generals back in the day, they were just like, yo, I got good technology, I got good soldiers, yeah, let's go. It wasn't that way. It's like the generals back in the day, where you could say it was as if, like, at least the impression I have received from observing history, reading history, that the view I have, the way it has arose to me, it's as if they did not care only about what they had. They cared about how the moment was happening. That means the two generals were not there in an empty wasteland fighting. They weren't in an empty battlefield fighting. The battlefield had a soul. And the general who found the soul of the battlefield first had the ally, I would say. Heaven, they were in balance with heaven first. So that means karmically they would win. Kind of like Star Wars Ordeal, where they're like, the Jedi, like, super easily, I don't know, kills like a bunch of like made of twigs drones. And then the other Jedi's, like, the other, you know, characters, like, this force is strong in this one. That just means it's not the time for this being to exit the realm. So the force will be strong until the time the being has to exit. It's as if life is kind of like we paid to go into the cinema, and we're sitting in the cinema chair and we're watching the movie, but we've forgotten we're in the cinema chair and we're freaking out because we think we're the character in the movie. So this person in the cinema chair can choose to leave the cinema chair early. You can choose to get out of the cinema and not see this existence to its end. You have that choice. You have that choice to get distracted, not even see the film that's here being played, you know. Or you can actually watch the film of life as if you paid for this movie as a multidimensional being. It's like you had tickets, okay? That means it's like, can you imagine? You know, the person's like, why? Why am I suffering in this world? You know, then suddenly in another dimension beyond this life, the person's like, oh, wait, I chose to go there. Oh, that's hilarious. You know, you know, the sound of the voice of eternity is laughter. The voice of the temporary is tears. It can be tears. The best thing, the best way, it's as if like when the elemental body, for me, I have this sort of attitude that if there ever comes a time where I am exiting, my attention is exiting, I am returning my elemental renta karma. So I would, in that sense, watch the wisdom. I also saw something from Guru Padmasambhava, a quote, where it's as if, what can you do when you can't do anything? You realize you're left with the watcher you have always been, and that you cannot lie to. You know, we say, well, let's be honest with yourself, you know. We say, like, there's that kind of thing, you know, be yourself. That advice is constantly there, but to truly be yourself at its core means the being has stopped all the wars against existence. That means insta forgive existence. Whatever. You look at existence and you're like, oh shit, it didn't know better. You know, that's how it existed. You know, our ancestors killed each other. Oh shit, you know, that's how they didn't know better. It's like, what are you gonna do about kids? Even though my ancestors, you know, there's, you know, so much older than me. If they were alive now, they would be like, you know, thousands of years old. I would be I am still older than them. You know, it's as if like the younger generations don't realize they don't have wisdom of what goes on the surface of the earth, but because they are being born in a more mature earth, they automatically are. Do you know? That means sometimes, I'm pretty sure most people, just it's natural for human beings to look at another human being and be like, wow, like what, for me, when I saw Elon Musk, it like freaked me out. I was like, okay, aliens do exist. Yeah. I'm joking, but I'm saying like, there was something that it's like when you see something can be done, you do it. Imagine the first baker. Nobody's baked bread ever. And the first person's like, I've had it with looking at this, you know, field of hay, you know. So what the person does is, sorry, not hay, wheat. Okay, I would say, specifically wheat. So what happens is the person makes the first bread, and like, so another human being's like, yo, what is that, man? You know, what is that? And the person's like, this is bread. This is the greatest technology of our time. I'm telling you, there was a time bread was like, the culinary arts were like the advancement of civilization. Like, you know, right now somebody writes a new program and it revolutionizes human living. Like back in the day, somebody found like salt and pepper and put it in a stew, and everybody was like, no way, this is next level. Like, it was such advanced, it was like an update. For me, I found myself in 2016 in Iran. It's literally Iran is my birthplace, and I visited after many years, and there I found myself being invited to speak for the first time. It was like in my mind, I had kind of envisioned, all right, I'm going to go in public and speak in a certain way with a certain setting. But this was a situation that found me before I found it. And they give me the microphone, and I have to speak different language than English. And the whole talk, it was recorded. The guy's like, you got 10 minutes, you know. And and I finished in 8. But he says, he gives me the microphone, and I just, for the first time, I have to talk. And again, I'll repeat, talk 438. I think it's that. It's MW438. You press it on YouTube, you might find it. So what I shared in that talk was that night before I was the last speaker invited to speak. And before that, there was so many different people who had come, and they all were introduced as master this, like literally in Farsi the word is Ostad, right? So imagine I was in this kind of like debate gathering, you know, you can say philosophy gathering. I pretty much say there's a thing going on maybe in Western countries. There's this whole, the New Age is updated a little, but in some countries there is, you can say the idea of the guru, where it's as if, imagine before scribes, before writing stuff in books, we were orally sharing it. That means our species has a giant evolutionary memory of passing down stories. It's just built into us. It was the backup system before writing became our backup system. Now cyberspace has become our backup system. Like all my voices are being preserved in cyberspace. But back in the day, a person couldn't even, before the recorder was made, the person couldn't even do anything. You know, could only write it down. They couldn't share their voice. Now, like it's the evolution of history, where it's like my actual voice is like the history of this moment, in my grandkids in the future may see it, you know. So before it was just the concept transitioning through in history. Now it's like the more and more dimensions are being recorded. Our history is becoming more. Our history is like a video game. History is like a linguistic video game that is becoming more and more able to capture the real human being as technology advances. So in that talk, I say there is the danger of sometimes spirituality being escapism of reality, and people getting attached to identities in the void. Pretty much, not like, as if, think of it this way. Let's say there's a guru, let's say there's a disciple, okay? Now, the guru says something, the disciple hears something. The disciple says something, the guru hears something. If we were really looking at it, everybody's initial guru is the whole world. The guru is just a part of the world. That means a person is never just learning from one person. A person is learning from their whole moment spherical awareness of being. Like, that's how it works. So nobody has ever had a guru, because it's impossible. You're learning from everything. You can't be obsessed. You know, it's a choice. It's a weakness, you know. There is something in human psychology when it gets to a point where it's so weak it can't put any effort, and then it at least has an effort to judge itself. You know, that means it's as if you push and life gets moved forward. If it doesn't get moved forward, you keep pushing. It doesn't get moved forward. You're like, oh my God, what's going on? You're pushing. And then you push and you see it can't be pushed. Then you begin to see life is pushing you back. And then let's say it pushes you back to a point where you may suddenly start believing that, oh man, maybe I deserve to be pushed back in this life because life is pushing me. And if we deserved what happened in the present only, why would we then be able to see the future? The future is the redemption of the past. There is no other way. You can come to the present and turn off the whole ideological linguistic system, but I'm telling you, it's as if the future is the truth of both the present and the past. And I know that from a metaphysical standpoint, it's all the present. I know, I've heard that endless times, you know. From even stretching from Plato saying time is the moving image of eternity, and Einstein saying we created time, so everything doesn't happen at once. It's obvious. It's obvious that it's one thing going on, and because we're a small thing in this big thing, we have a relationship with all the different parts in this one big thing, you know. So what I'm saying is, when a fractal mind develops, the guru is just a mirage. Or I would say it's not a mirage, it's just a reflection. So in that talk, which it's in a totally different language, when I was in Iran and I was sharing it, I said, if your guru is outside, if you're chasing a guru that is outside of you, you're chasing a person, a random person you don't know. But if you realize the whole point of the guru outside was to reflect to the individual the guru within, so they don't have to be dependent on the karma of another person. That means it's as if you're alive once, get to see what your karma is. It's one of the most liberating feelings on this planet. And it can only be found through novelty. That means if you're doing something based on the past, you'll never know what was originally your side. And when I say original, that means just raw experience prior to anything being done with being to become a doer. I will tell you, if you need a teacher, you're not in the front lines of direct experience. It's not possible. We are explorers at best. That means if the teacher, I mean really, the teacher, all the teacher can do is like, hey, the world is unknown, okay? You're unknown too, student. You know, I'm unknown too, even though I'm teaching you. So realize in this giant unknown, you know, you gotta move how you know things. Right? Like, what else can be said after that? You know? After that, the teacher just lights a cigarette and it's like, all right, why are you still in the classroom? Move on. You know? Because life deserves in landing the new. That means that, you see, there is spaces. Like, there was the idea of the temple wasn't just like you were cutting trees to build buildings that you went inside to pray for better weather. Like, do you know what I mean? It was a space. You see, human beings, what are, I shouldn't even say human beings, what can a conscious being do? You can either move as an object, you can either move objects, or you can, again, the whole movement in space or be space. These are the two options. That means when a person sits in nature, I do this whenever I feel like right now I'm like very energetic, that it becomes where going in nature is like going to, like, it's a backup system, it's a recharge, like plugging the iPhone into the phone charger. That means anytime when life becomes so complex that I have no idea what to do in a sort of you can say as a human being, I just go into nature and I'm like, all right, I don't know what to do as a human, but I know how to be. I know how to be. That's simple, right? Everybody knows how to be. So just go and be, and suddenly over time things balance. I'll be, like, in 10 minutes your suffering goes away, and you'll get astonished. You'll get astonished at how, just like the body heals itself, your mind aligns itself. If the person stops whipping the mind with their own story. I am telling you, free the world from language and you would have also freed yourself from language. But as it remain a language and then remain as a creature, and like anybody who thinks they're a thought right now, like you believe in Santa. What do you want me to say? Dylan says, I can't believe I didn't trust myself before now. I feel like I've woken up inside myself. Exactly, man. That's it. We're just energy. Be like in the human phase of things. Right? And the best thing is nobody knows. That means just think about it logically. Let's say a person is deciding, and of course guys, I'm just, this is a philosopher's podcast, but but I'm gonna say it. Imagine you're a person, I'm remembering the good old days. It's as if the person is choosing. They're like, okay, I'm alive once on this planet. What is the most advanced educational system? What is the most advanced peak of knowledge? Like if we were like, I don't know, like mages back in the day in some fantasy realm, we'd be like, where is the wizard school or whatever, right? So the person would wonder about where is the most advanced view, right? Now, what's hilarious is in the center of the city, you find the most advanced material view, material knowledge. But in the mountains, you find the most advanced immaterial knowledge. And immaterial knowledge means that after you know something, you wonder about its absence. Guys, sorry, but sometimes when I speak, I don't get to say, like I want to say a bunch of things at the same time, but only I can vocalize one of them. So it may be that sometimes some part of the picture is vague, but anything that a person doesn't understand, ask, and if the person can't ask, treat it as poetry. Treat it as poetry until there is an inner film you can see. We know one thing. Everybody knows how they're being. That means if you know your being could be unknown. You could be an unknown being right now, but you know your being, right? So when it comes to ontology, we know we're being either something or nothing. That means there is an instant level to knowing, then there is knowing with delay. Some things may happen and a person may not understand until years later. I remember it was like this, someone had said something to me, and at the time I was so obliviously, happy that that it was I didn't even take the sentence in a certain way, right? But years later I was just scrolling in my memories, how you scroll the web, I was scrolling the internet and I realized that memory was totally a discrimination. It was like there was something racist happening to me. I didn't even realize it. It wasn't. Well, I shouldn't say it was racist, but it was definitely like some bias from the inner realm of the other person. But in my inner realms, I was like not in the same room. So that's the hilarious thing, that when a person is not even in the same room, they can't even communicate, person wonders about the best location for knowledge in the outer realms, and they're like, okay, so what university? You know, what university in this universe shall I choose? You know, and then the person wonders, okay, let me wonder what the teachers in the university know. Like, what can the teachers realistically say? That means the student of the university, imagine you're a student who you haven't chosen to go to university yet. First wonder, if you were a teacher in that university, would you be a student of yourself? You know, this is a very strange thing. It's probably like, it doesn't mean it's an accurate visualization. I'm just saying it's like when the person fathoms what the highest levels of a system can do and becomes familiar with that, then when they look at the lowest levels, it becomes very easy to maneuver. You know, that means it's as if every system has a source. That's the law of energy, pretty much. Like, energy is source, being the source for something, right? And what's hilarious, it's as if we're like, we all believe in a material world, but this material world is energy, and then they're asking us what is energy, and we're like, oh my god, we defined it as something that can't be created or destroyed, but changes from form to form. Literally, the scientific definition of energy is the same as the definition of the transmigratory soul in Tibetan Buddhism, in Vedanta. That means it's hilarious. It's like the word Atman has become energy. And then the way the Atman is as if like the potential energy of the brain. Holy shit, who knew there were so many worlds in it? What can I say, guys? Whatever we say, like, the fact is, the unknown, there's a greater than sign towards the unknown than the known. This means the inspiration of action should not be to get the knowledge, but to see what kind of knowledge there is in the unknown. That means any human being in anything you're doing, anything, you could be a person even flipping burgers, okay? The idea is that it doesn't matter where in history you're born. Imagine you were such a multidimensional being that you could have been born in any moment in history and you could have survived. It doesn't matter where, right? It doesn't matter in what situation, what appearance, what format. Anywhere you could have gone, you could have been consciously piloting properly, right? So the idea is that the moment anybody finds the unknown variable, that's the clue. The unknown variables in a system are the clue to how it can update. Anytime you find the unknown, you create a space for that knowledge to either expand, or that space becomes completely for a new type of way to know things. So it's like back in the day, it was people had to just know things. Now people have to also, believe it or not, know the unknown. So it's reached a point where in order to have an advanced civilization, this is the only strategy. I've sat down about it and I've thought about it literally. How do I choose to put a greater than sign between selfishness and selflessness? Selflessness means, all right, the whole system wins. Selfishness means I win, right? Then I wondered, why is it that it can't be selfish? Like, why? Like, it can't be. Why is it that even though, like, how would I say? All right, I need music for this. Hold on, guys. can a person be selfish? Because it's much easier to be selfish, honestly. We'll be kidding. It's so easy to hide in a bunker of knowledge. It's much harder to go beyond the wall, like the Night's Watch, you know. So the idea is we're living in a world where it's easier to be selfish, and us being selfish can mean the collective loses. But if we can find a way where we can recycle an individual selfishness into collective victory, that is a win-win. That means we're like, okay, the individual gets to do whatever it wants, but the individual gets to do whatever it wants after it has built a system, such an advanced self-sustaining system, you know, civilization, that the mistakes of the individual, the advanced civilization, just watches it and sees it as another dimension of information and takes care of the blind spots of the human being. Technology is mankind's greatest ally. But anything we can't control, we end up fighting or dying to. That's the reality of it. It's as if like there's stories of wild animals trained, and these wild animals that are trained, the person is treating them like a family member, but it's a wild animal, you know. Imagine the person has a tiger in their house. They're like, look at this, it's like, yo, and they call the tiger Fluffy. Oh, Fluffy, come over here. And the Fluffy's like growling as if like its animal instincts have kicked in regardless, and it never had a personality to have rationality or a value system. Excuse me. It's very hard to tell if an animal is conscious of itself as a member of a tribe, or that's just the phase of its experience. Imagine a world where pretty much we're 8 billion people, so we had some sort of global system where 8 billion people had each other's blind spots. Technically, it would be a world where nobody would have a blind spot, right? And imagine the advanced civilization was like anybody who just does something decent and advanced in civilization will get paid. That means in the future, because everybody is technically, as an energetic body, you're working all the time. The moment, it's like when the person's eyes open in the morning, that's when your work begins in the lifetime. You know, that's when you actually become work begins, in my view. You know, so you can't say, like, in some contexts, some people call it workaholic, but for me, I see it as like, what is the value of the individual? Right? It's self-preservation. If you got that going, if you're content with how the self is preserved, then it becomes about how the world is preserved, right? That's what we see when so many incredibly wealthy people on this planet, they suddenly become philanthropists. Why? Because the dude's like, yo, how long can I sit on this pile of gold? It's hurting my ass. Like, the person's gonna eventually come down to civilization and just go to a point where you live, right? So you want life to advance, or you want life to be in a format, in a certain boat until your eyes close, right? And once we wake up from the illusion, it's gonna be so much more rewarding. Why? Because it's just as common sense as what does it make, which makes sense? 8 billion beings working together, like teamwork, or everybody going their own way, right? We're giving an everybody go their own way kind of freedom, but we need actual teamwork to build the civilization. So much reform needs to occur. It's literally like we need to have like this global digital online meeting where literally this is not possible. What I'm saying, if we could, this is what we would aim for, right? Where 8 billion human beings just log in into this like cyberspace moment, and we're like, okay, what do we do with this rock, guys? We're on this giant rock. What do we do? Forget the nation story, forget the culture story, the language story, the myth story, you know, the abstraction story. Forget everything, and for a moment, what would we do on a rock in the middle of nowhere? Anybody who is honest and comes to this simple moment, that means the only thought you have is what can be done on a rock on Earth as a creature, honestly. And I will tell you, you start from there, the explorer's spirit will just advance your communication. I'm telling you, the world's gonna be like, the world's gonna, I don't want to say the world's gonna use the self as an instrument. I would say, honesty plus effort equals divine overwatch. There's something there. There's something there that when a person honors the simpler dimensions of how they are, they free themselves from any complex angle having to touch them. You become untouchable to the complex when you're simple. You know, I'll give you an example. Imagine someone, the person's in the park, you know, sitting, and someone comes to them in the park and says, da, 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 just massive like Elder Scroll of negative statements and insults, right? A complex display of chaos thrown at the other. Okay, so the person sitting on the bench, imagine hears this, and at the end the chaotic person's like, what do you have to say about all this that I just said about you from my own viewpoint? And the person looks at the complexity and says, okay, all right. And and you might be astonished how many forces keep going because their only reason is to be engaged. That means people don't behave because they're a rational creature only, or because it's just their emotions are out of control. We want what is being to be done, literally. We're energy that's like, what do I do as energy? I gotta express, you know? So the biggest deception is that peace had to do with the outer realms. That peace came from the outer realms. Let me tell you why. Because the outer realms has its own mind. Imagine in this picture, you see this giant mythical, I don't know, what is it, Pokemon or something? Like this kind of like serpent creature, you know, in this underwater post-apocalyptic city. Sorry guys, my attention went elsewhere. A feeling I can share is just similar to this creature. We are on the back of a giant movement. Imagine if civilization literally was built on a turtle's back. Literally, excuse me.
Oh.
The world is alive, and like a giant turtle, you can touch the neck of the turtle and feel it. You can feel this world is alive. So if the world is alive, it means the periodic table doesn't listen to its effect. The periodic table has no owner. That means human beings have gods, but atoms don't. Elements don't. It's like an alphabet doesn't have faith. It's just part of the inner wall. And honestly, if we consider we're multidimensional, it doesn't make sense to have a guru in one dimension. Like, how does that ever even make sense? The person has to just train. They have to train and cultivate experiential mastery over whatever energy their attention is. That's it. And the person has to have the audacity to step out of the game of duality. It's super easy. It's as easy as wondering who you were before you were born. And some people are like, I remember who I was before I was born. And they're like, yeah, who were you? And the person's like, yeah, I remember it. Well, I was nothing. I have a memory that I was nothing before I was born. That nothing is me. You see? The roots of intelligence may be in sensory soil, but its branches are elsewhere. Endless endurance, honest effort, collective intellect, and last but not least, honor of the unknown. That means pretty much, guys, if I was cornered into having a philosophy, a specific philosophy, for me, I'm like unknown eyes moving in a known world. That's even at its edges unknown. So unknown eyes in an unknown world, that's where I've been left. You know, that's where my eyes have come to them. But it doesn't mean I have a sort of, you can say in certain mystic circles, they have a fetishism for purity. And that's a very strange statement, but I'll tell you what I mean by that. I mean that behavior has surpassed the experience of the moment. That means it's as if a behavioral theatrics has overridden an experience that was meant to be with one fragment of. It's pretty much the universe is a yin-yang symbol, but instead of white and black, it's known and unknown. In the unknown, there's a little bit of the known, and in the known, there's a little bit of the unknown. In front of your eyes, you are a little bit of unknown in a world that's observable, which can be known. Not its edges, but it can be known. Behind your eyes, you are the unknown, and there's a little bit of known, and that little bit of known is like the little bit of attention. Attention has a reserve space. So imagine somehow the person could close their eyes, and when they close their eyes, they realize the universe was it was parallel. It was like parallel universes, but they weren't parallel universes that had anything to do with each other, right? They were as if like parallel. That means imagine this Earth. On endless dimensions, there's different types of civilizations being built on the same rock, but we don't see it. We don't have access to that veil, right? And imagine somebody who, I don't know, if you shamanic experience, or as the scholar Terence McKenna would say, the shamanic intent can take you to the center of a mountain where elves use language. Where elves, when they use language, it becomes reality, right? So like you see, so there's so many ways. Like when I studied even different ways that pretty much systems of different cultures had opened up to the unknown. That's really the fun of, like, I think spirituality is really like the same kind of passion as an astronomer has to find a new star with the telescope, or to look at a new finding from Hubble, or to look at Hubble's homework. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like there's a passion for knowing the depth of the mystery, but not losing oneself in it, because it makes no sense. You can't know something if you're not there, right? This is why I'm saying this is the hardest thing I feel, and people who I wouldn't say identify, because it's impossible to use that word when somebody says they're non-dual, when somebody's non-dual, language is not them. But the issue is that the identity, the self, was based on language. So that means you become karma-less, but you don't have anything else. So non-duality is not the point. Non-duality is like falling asleep in the theater. You went into samadhi, great, you're missing the movie. You're missing the elemental journey. It's like this. It's like a person, imagine, woke up and they had a wrench in their hand and they saw an engine in front of them, right? And they somehow knew how to fix the engine, okay? So that person would look at the wrench and be like, okay, so the purpose of this wrench in my hand is to be used, right? Now, I feel it's the same, where it's like an unknown universal witness has noticed a global thing in its hand. It has noticed a global opportunity to be an individual, right? Because enlightenment is like going from the top of the mountain to a peak. Have you noticed when you go to the top of the mountain, one truth, yay! But what happens when you get to the mountain peak? You either have to go on a superior journey where you are flying, you're no longer using feet. That means the meaning of life has changed. There's no longer a mountain to climb anymore. The sky has become something to fly. From climbing the mountain, you go to flying in the sky. But I would say the other option is, if you want to have the victory of being the person on the top of the mountain, means that you have to come down. When you have to come down means you are not on the top. That means it's as if, imagine somebody actually went to Mount Everest, right? And it was documented, and that person was like at a gathering, and they're like, yo guys, I went to Mount Everest, what about that? And somebody's like, I don't believe you, man. It's like, whatever. And the person's like, no, I went there, And the person's like, show me like a pictures of it, and the person shows the pictures. He's like, I still don't believe you, Do you see how simple it is? The value can be instantly seen, never to even be there. That means it's like this. It's like people. I've noticed this more with women. I mean, but I'll tell you. I'll tell you, it's like what we don't notice, it's easier to dismiss. It's like when a person, for example, gets offended, they have no reason to care for the other person. So they have demonic authorization, in a sense. What I mean by that is like literally, um, I mean, of course, human beings are, we're, the whole point of this talk is that we're mysterious creatures, and what do we do about that? But like, at the same time, communication and having care for the realm means you got to care for the known dimensions of a creature and also the unknown dimensions of a creature. Now we're 8 billion beings. We're in the known dimension. We can communicate, we can speak, we can podcast, all of this. But in the inner dimensions, we're still our own journeyers. We're like customized characters in a video game that only we can see when it comes to the inner realms, right? And so the first thing has to be is the maturity of the species that do not expect anyone to understand you. Honestly, I don't know how that's. It's like I can agree with people, but I can, for them to understand me, it would mean to truly, for when I say to understand them the way from the same eyes that I'm seeing, it would be cloning. It would, and it's not possible. Do you know? That means it would be scary. It would be as if there would be two moments of me in the same space-time continuum. The worlds we live in and the worlds that live in us. This is where we have come to as a species. You know, if we can develop a system ultimately where the mistake of the individual cannot be a mistake for the collective, it could just be added, recycled again, there we would have the greatest fun. That means children will be born no longer fearing. It would be a world of geniuses. Why? Because violence has not occupied the territory. It's as if a question that I honestly wish, like I could ask every nation. Like it's not possible, but like just a thought. It would be like, what are you doing with yourself? It's like human beings have no choice but to live in a city, but when they live in the city, the systems are so, I mean, it's honestly inefficient. It's like the inefficiency has to be responded to. It's ridiculous. What that means is it's like there's endless people going into, let's say, a mall, and it's like there's a door, and the door keeps, nobody's holding the door open. And after some point, somebody's like, okay, what is this? Somebody find a brick. They get a brick and they like keep the door open, right? And everybody just goes completely without. So after some point, somebody has to notice how things have been happening, and then be like, how else can they happen? And then be land their inner realms and the outer realms. And that is literally the best thing an advanced communicator can do. What that means is I have these two concepts really, the advanced communicator and the pilot of consciousness. And the advanced communicator is this idea that the advanced communicator is the most advanced communication of the universal sector. So the advanced communicator is inseparable, as the being was realized, their communication is inseparable from the most advanced communication of the universal sector. So what is happening? They are literally surfing the universal event. So what they say goes in along with its rhythm, let's say. Guys, this is an important episode. I would say I've decided to make a decision, and it's going to be really difficult for me. I don't know how like for now I'll just share it this way. I'll finish that thing I was saying about the pilots of consciousness, but I feel like literally today, it's the elections in America. And for a moment I was thinking like I should take a 1 year like sabbatical, like 1 year break from the talks. I don't know why, but I feel like maybe the time has come to take a break, but anyways, it's an update. The advanced communicator is the advanced communication of the universal sector. The pilot of consciousness navigates as the whole plane of existence. That means human beings this music is too ambient, but I'm going to continue. We treat the world, let's say it like this, that all human beings in the world, we treat it as if we are in a plane. Literally, as a manner of speech, we can say we are in a plane of existence. And I would say, just like a pilot who pilots an airplane, this civilization of ours has pilots. And I would say those who are piloting, they are like in the trenches and they're like in the front lines of the civilization in regards to animating the mind of a civilization. You know, animating the mind of the BI. So the advanced communicators are like the stewards. The advanced communicators are, we can say, here to respond to in an advanced way, to an advanced multidimensional ability to view the moment, respond to communication stuck in duality, just like airplane hostesses, stewardesses. You know, it's as if the advanced communicators is tackling, do you want apple juice or do you want orange juice? You know, the advanced communicators are there to balance out the chaos, not to say like there's something to do like that, but it's just like we want efficient advanced human beings in the civilization. So the advanced communicators, they're going to be like candles with an advanced glow in the moment, let's say. So the advanced communicators are the stewards, and there are pilots, right? The thing about the pilot is the pilot are all those beings who the pilot flies solo or at most with a co-pilot. Okay? The advanced communicators, they're right there with the passengers. All the different types of intelligence or cause and effect probabilities adding to the system. Legit like waking up in the system. You see, the easiest thing to do in this life is to be carried. As if like back in the day, like a bunch of people sitting in a wagon, you know. You know, it's like the easiest thing is to be carried, right? But the hardest thing is to actually be the one who's carrying, right? So the pilot is like the carrier, the one who's pulling the cart, right? then the advanced communicator is like the person talking to the people in the wagon, you know, in a sense of what the next phase of the whole plane would be. So it's as if three roles. For the average like passenger, I did in this book I wrote called The Source of Language, which I may read from tonight. I called it SADO, SADO. Okay. I don't know if it was with I think it was with an O. I don't know if it was with an O or a U. But anyways, so it was with an O, SADO, right? Sadhu is a term in Vedic thought, which I would say means a seeker of the truth, in a sense. The one who's seeking the ultimate. So the sadhu is the passenger, where the passenger in the airplane is seeking the ultimate destination. That means it doesn't matter if you're the pilot, if you're the advanced communicator, everybody wants to get to the destination. It doesn't matter what kind of human being you are, the species wants to advance. Wants to pilot on to its next chapter. So from simple levels of being responsible for the realm, we have complex levels of being responsible. The pilot is doing the most complex job in the plane. And this is why when the pilot, when the airplane pilot enters, everybody, all the passengers are smiling at the pilot. It's like, oh, how are you doing, sir? You know, like just complimenting, try and make like this pilot's flying us. Oh my God, you better be in a good mood, you know? So the pilot is more like precision work, okay? But the advanced communicator is there kind of wondering about how this collective system is going to walk, right? That means we were in Shiva's house, currently we are in Vishnu's house, and we will go to Brahma's house, in a sense where how civilization will be built. So it's as if we built a civilization that had more potential for destruction, then we build a civilization that has more potential for peace, which means neutrality, then we build a civilization which in some sense has potential for something Brahman, the creative force, would mean. It's like the word artist wouldn't exist. It would be as synonymous as to just what the creature is. That means there is no longer, you can either stay in stay blindly fighting in the language wars of the battle against belief and disbelief, or the person can choose to advance their communication. And there's two ways you advance it. You either advance the room you're in, or you go to the best room you can be. That means if you're in a battlefield, let's say you just open your eyes and you're in the middle of a battlefield, and holy shit, right? If you don't have like a sword and a shield, let's say this is like medieval times or whatever, first thing is get out of there, right? That means if you don't have anything to respond to the moment, leave, you know? But I would say, if the person realizes they can't leave the battlefield, which is kind of like the existential activity, you can have as many kinds of beliefs you want, cherry pick as much as you want, you know, you can cherry pick, you can even put any kind of language sticker on anything. You can look at a coffee cup and be like, this is God, man, you know, and everybody starts worshiping with this coffee cup, and this can totally happen. We're at that level, right? But we're also beyond that level. So there's some people who it's like there's some coaches, okay, who they see the team is in some sense like upset, and the coach is like you're animals, you know, fires them up, and oh my God, the players are ready, and they go into like the battlefield fired up, right? You know, but then imagine, right? It's not just furious blind intensity. Like maybe in a game with simple variables, fury wins, okay? But in games that have multiple dimensions, you can't just furiously plow through, Because you'll eventually, it's like a bulldozer that's not looking where it's going. Eventually it will hit a ditch. I remember I said it to someone once. Intelligent gentleness. As if the being is their intelligence has found, or as Isaac Asimov says, violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. The intelligence has found a better way, legit, more energy-saving way. So many people, they turn the lights off in their house to save energy, right? But how many people turn off unnecessary linguistic simulations that their ignorant engagement with brings them to reality? You know, I've spoken to people who you ask them, you're like, hey man, what's going on? Are you stressed or something? And the person's like, no, I'm not stressed. But then when they start speaking, they're just talking about how life isn't working out. And those people have to be literally snapped out of their past. You know? Because I will tell you, language was magic to an object. It was like, whoa, objects began moving, and then they began speaking. Then they began perceiving beyond their speech somehow. You know what I mean? Like, evolution isn't a joke, even though the cosmos seems to be. And honestly, do we want a civilization with advanced beings in it? You know? And whatever emotional way I say that, it's just the next thing, it's gonna happen. I mean, it's just happening slowly now. It's as if human beings are like, I'm a part of nature only, you know? So I don't have to do anything, you know, in the mechanical realm. Do you know the intimacy of man and machine is going to get to a point where robots are going to become, AI is going to become like our best friend, like how dogs are. Like they say dogs are man's best friend, it's AI is going to become our best friend. We don't know it yet. We think it's going to be an a-hole, but it's not. If we don't keep making movies where we're with machine guns destroying technology, maybe that way AI has less to get angry at. Yeah. You know, it's hilarious. It's like we pretty much made a bunch of films where we're actually destroying machines, and then we actually are trying to make the machines that we want to destroy. It's ridiculous. It's literally like, what is the species choosing to echo as an image into the future? An advanced civilization means that, I would say, it's not just about order winning. I'll be honest. It's about, there is chaotic members to civilization, there's ordered members to civilization. How do we get this going on? Like, how do we, excuse me. How do we get chaotic creatures and ordered creatures to live in one civilization? You know how many people in history have thought about that? And the whole point is, it can't be done, so it has to be two civilizations, a yin-yang civilization. We require to build a yin-yang civilization, a civilization that doesn't fear chaos to instantly break it, that studies chaos as much as it studies order. That means as if chaos and order are like, you know, nephews of the advanced civilization. You know, it's like you care for them. But you know, it's like in this world of ours, I'll say, there's even, what can I say, health gurus. So back in the day, there was at least one kind of guru, like a holy guru, divine guru. Now there's a health guru, marketing guru, mind guru, like endless kind of gurus, you know, endless kind of cyberspace gurus, you know. It's literally like how to hold a pen guru, like, you know, it's getting to that point, you know. And it's not wrong, that person can totally be a guru and teach people how to hold a pen, but it's just holding a pen, right? The glorification is a self-imagining. Charles Godwin says the enemy is always found within. I mean, if the world is your enemy, the only thing you can find in the inner realms is an enemy. If you're in a world where you think everything is like there's enemies, yeah, in the inner realms you're gonna seek, you shall find. You know, so it's the same with the inner realms too. But in the inner realms, the seeking and finding is instantaneous. That's the difference. The art of using language is to notice the language is secondary to the inner film. There's an inner cinematic language that it's something you awaken to. When I gotta say this, when I was younger, I could visualize letters on walls. You know, I had seen it, like teachers like write on a blackboard, so my mind could instantly write anything on any wall I could see. Like I could go to a wall and just write my name in my inner realms on that wall. But at the time, I didn't even have the concept of inner realms. At the time, it was like, oh, like it was just like this kind of, you know, fool of nature moment. You know, I can't tell you in how many systems you have to be a fool to be able to even see the greater depths. You know, you have to trip. You have to trip. And I don't want to say you have to trip, but I'm saying like, the contrast comes from, you know, a shift in elevation, different elevations. Now I've reached a point where I don't have to think through language anymore. Like it's not, the language has become instant, just like how a person writes a lot. After a point, they don't think about the pen in their hand. They just have an emotion. It doesn't matter what paper there is, instantly they can write it. It doesn't matter if the light of the room is on or off, they can write it. You know, when you've written a lot, your hand knows itself. There's that memory there, right? So it's become something that becomes so intuitive. So imagine you are a person who you've spent some years of your life transcribing, or I should say, I shouldn't say transcribing, I should say translating an internal wind of a film, or river of thoughts, you could say, an inner landscape, and sharing this inner landscape. I've done this so long where I could tell you honestly what happens is we become image livers. We start living in films, right? So right now, it's as if there's an inner film, okay, and the outer world in front of our eyes. Life is like a film, right? We're like an actor in a film. So in the Vedic term is Leela, L-E-E-L-A, Leela. Leela, it's like a play. You realize life is a play of element forces. So there is the inner and the outer. We have the what's the term I want to use? Okay, we have an inner film and we have an outer film, and in the middle of this we have a bridge of behavior, and then we have writing and typing and all sorts of mediumship are existing between two films. So meditation is not trying not to have thoughts. That makes no sense. The idea is to watch what is happening, because there's two ways to not have thoughts. One, to actually, as if they're like I don't know, it's like dust on your shoulder, brush off those thoughts, man. You know, like it's either like that, or there is no self. There is no self to have anything. That's the gift of mysticism. So we are sandwiched between an inner film and an outer film. The inner film, in my personal view, is occurring at a faster speed than the outer film. That means technically everything is one giant event happening, but it comes across as an object, like an element's just moving. And then simultaneously, the only way we know there's elements moving because there's a knower. Now this knower has no choice to be like, yo, I'm a creature in an environment, stimulus. You know, like, so stuff in the world is happening. So pretty much the moment you are conscious, waves of information hit you every day. From you walking outside to you hearing ads on radio to whatever. That means right now, the way I feel it is that when people listen to my talks, they're actually, my voice is just a series of sounds among all the sounds that their psychology, like an orb, like orbs of awareness moving on the surface of this earth, we receive. Like it's as if there's, if we were honest, we would see we don't know. And that's where I would say a person's true karma happens. Because if a person tries not to be themselves, or try to discover at least what the true nature of it is, I mean honestly, then why are you? Right? That's the view. That means if you need a guru, then why are you? You know, if the person has to be like the guru, right? Why are you not the guru? Do you know what I mean? Like it's as if like we shouldn't lose the value of whatever ideological system enters the awareness of the person. Never forget, you're on a rock in the middle of nowhere. If you have that, you cannot be deceived. If you realize that. If you realize the unknown is here first, then the known, right? You can't worship language. And it's hilarious because even from from a theological lens, or I would say just looking at the Abrahamic religions, right? It's as if it's a message. The message is not meant to be worshipped. The message is meant to be received. As if somebody sent you a text message and you look at that text message and you never look at anything else. Right? And the point of the text message was, yo, look at yourself. So that's the issue with it. We have allowed language to be us. And let me tell you, it's not that a person should throw away language. Treat it as a technology. Use your own discretion. I'm just one person in a universe of a billion trillion stars talking. Like this is a giant place we're in. You know, this world is so big that we can never know enough. And when a person becomes content with that, they move from the scholar evolves into a sort of the heart of the heartist's bhakti yogi path. I don't know how to say it. Like you see, after some point in life, whatever system you implement, if the person truly doesn't care or doesn't love something about that moment, they don't endure it. That means I feel like for the first time we have to, in order to be alert and in a strange way street smart, in the linguistic simulation, we have to just treat it that objects can be perceived from multiple angles, so can subjects, and the mystery still stands. That sentence literally is like, a fire extinguisher like salvation, you know, backup salvation. Communication is the most important thing that it needs to advance. And there's going to come a time where, hopefully through advancements through nanotechnology and some sort of food creation that doesn't require killing animals, we will create and imagine a massive giant building on this planet where it's technically a science fiction wizardry school. It's a hall of advanced communication where human beings are wondering, okay, we can communicate with what, right? Some human beings can communicate with animals, for example, lion tamers or whatever, right? Or horse trainers or whatever. Some people they can communicate with other species. Some people can communicate with people of their own species. Some people, shamans, they communicated with the spirit of nature. You know, that means imagine we had a massive, you know what I mean? Like a massive school, you know? We would just explore all the ways that communication can reveal. That means we're gonna be like Born Supremacy, like that movie where the main character has no clue who he is. Like, I don't know, it's like, that's one way to monetize amnesia, you know? But of course I'm joking, in the sense that I mean, what can I say? There's different ways life moves. I just envision the species having just an advanced center for communication. That's it. We have like various kind of public servants like firemen, paramedics, police officers. These are like the angels of the outer realms. And we have to be careful that they remain angels. And in the future there will be advanced communicators. They will be like public servants for the mind. They would be the intermediaries between the public and the official. That means, like, we see it, for example, right now. There's oh my God, why isn't this implemented? This can get rid of street violence, where all units have accompanying a psychologist. I shouldn't say a psychologist. I should say accompany an advanced communicator. This is a vision I'm seeing in the future. The advanced communicator's job is just to advance the communication of the moment. That means people being respected, the communication to happening there. That means an intermediary in communication between man's individual system, the individual, and collective systems we find on the world, which is the greatness of how far the empires of man have become. That means even though when I look at the future, I scold the modern times for how are we not united yet. But when I look at the past, I'm like, the efforts we've made to even though there's messed up stuff still going on this planet, but it has reduced. That means we actually have no reason to complain on this planet. You know, if we look at our ancestors, they didn't even have coffee, you know, like that's tragic. Like really far ancestors, I'm thinking caveman era, you know. Dylan says in the chat section, I wish we could all start groups in our locations and create a vibe. That's what I'm saying. That's my vision of School of Athens 2.0, Dylan. Where School of Athens, it was one location where philosophers from around the world came, right? But now imagine it's as if School of Athens 2.0. It's all about, like, think about it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We can even justify this through that view. A human being takes care of their physiological needs, they go up to their psychological needs, then they go up towards self-actualization. Right? And there is love in between, of course. But what I'm saying, like, they go towards self-actualization. So that means the individual strategy, a sociologist named Maslow was like, all right, the human being goes and takes care of the physical components of their moment, and then the non-physical components. You know, it's more like the more the physical is balanced, the outer realms are at peace, the more the person can notice pieces of the inner realm. So, the advancement of communication means the advancement of the eyes that are seeing something before they communicate. And those eyes cannot be changed by anyone outside. I've had this strange experience, I've never said it, but there's been times where I have felt behind my eyes is like another sky. And this may sound ridiculous, but literally, like, behind my eyes there are clouds, and it's as if, like, when I look at, imagine if I'm looking at the sun and the sun was like an eye. Okay? Imagine if the sun was an eye, and that eye was in another realm where it was standing, where there was another sun. So that means in a fractal universe, the concept of an eye, an individual eye, is ignorance. Unless that eye has transcended identity. And if it has transcended identity, it has no way to respond. That means the mystics were like, how are spiritual people doing something? How, like, it's like we moved past that. After Buddha pretty much gave Buddha's teaching, and life was pretty much like surpassed the ritualism of Brahmanism. What I mean by that is, like, people were not looking at the world. They were just doing strange movements to find something. But now we can look at the world and ride the waves. So if metaphysics is as if, like, we're fishing in an ocean and there's currents, and the fish suddenly goes in the current and whoo, the fish went to the other side of the ocean. Then the fish got on another current and whoo, the fish came back to the same part of the ocean it was. And all the other fish are like, yo, what happened? What happened when you meditated by that tree? You know, Buddha realized the inner has the free will has an ability in the outer realms when it is in not resisting it. That means when it comes to the inner realms, everybody is free, but they don't notice it. So they either have to relate it to an outer realm story, or they don't know what to do. And that's the thing where I say, that's it. That not knowing what to do in life, that being lost in this universe in life, use it. Use that moment. That means let the ego self inquire. That means as if the person has lived a whole lifetime, right? As I'm this, yeah, look at what I've done, look at all these things I've done, da 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 da, right? Like a Tetris accumulation of various events of self-animation. Then the person, imagine, suddenly takes off the mask and remembers the faceless. An advanced civilization occurs when the balance between heaven and earth is. That means in the same way they had this strategy to choose higher ground in the battlefield, the general would choose the higher ground. They would say the heaven is there more. Like, I would say, I mean, I'm not using the right phrase, but it's as if heaven was more in higher ground than it was on lower ground. Being on the hill or whatever. So we need to learn to be the void, be content with the unknown, the void. We need to, as beings, as advanced communicators, learn to be individual and be content with all sorts of individualism. That means go look at anything that you consider individual and be like, okay, that's it. Right? Then we need to go to duality, right? This is the two dimension, I term it. So this means anything that is chaos and order, you look at chaos. You're like, chaos, you want to be chaotic? Okay. Order, you want to be ordered? Okay. And you see it. You see it for what it is. And you accept it. That's something chaos never accepts. Never expects. That order is going to accept it. That's the advance. People have not realized the unknown will come eventually. That's how we're designed as biological creatures. So first of all, to fear it makes no sense because it's something that's coming anyways. You know, there's going to come one moment where the person's going to suddenly watch the unknown. And if the species can train, if the person can be okay in unknown moments, then they have the potential to truly, beyond the dualistic dimension, go to the infinite dimension. The infinite dimension, the seeds are being planted now. That means we're gonna require, there's phases, I don't know, in my inner realms, I've seen the future evolve a couple times. And the way I've seen it is that right now, we were first, say, unconscious world, okay? We were an unconscious world. We evolved into an unconscious self. Then we evolved into a conscious self. Then we are going to become a conscious world. Or sorry, excuse me. Before we become a conscious world, there's a massive mini evolutions in between from the conscious self to the conscious world. When I say conscious world, that means for us to no longer have bodies, we've literally returned to the planet, but as conscious space. Like the space was beyond the planet, the body was in the planet. Okay, so your body is elements rented. We're literally driving in the periodic table right now. You know. So when we get to the conscious self, here a bunch of evolutions happen. That means the conscious self is the subjective evolution, and the unconscious self is creaturehood. We started having legs and hands and limbs just being separate. You know, a four-limbed creature separate from the earth that could move on the earth. Like you see that, I forget that Pokemon's name. Bulbasaur's like future self. These are the evolutions. The conscious self, okay, first had a behavioral evolution, okay. Then it had a vocal evolution. Then it had, from behavior we went to the voice. From the voice it had self-awareness, subjective self-awareness. So language. So imagine first we were just random behaving creatures. There was no voice, no sounds. Then we found a way to make sounds, but we couldn't control it. So people were making random sounds. Like as a creature, we were just like it was random probably. You know, you know, it had to be. There was no reason to control it yet. Right now we're wielding sound like airbenders. You know, but Okay, so where did we go from language? Now, I would say we're gonna go into, this is, I hope people listen here. We're gonna go from language where we currently are now. 2020 is, we have evolved to the language where we're in a linguistic simulation. We have identities, we're individuals, we're characters in a story, we're characters that care for the world story and whatnot. You know, so the next thing is we are in this moment an unknown language-based, an unknown story-contained mind. and a moving animal's body. It's like we're the whole universe, but we get to see it from this angle, you know. What's gonna happen is like you can even see it. Okay, first of all, evolution based on what the object of concentration is, or the subject of concentration is, can be given an infinite spectrum, and endless evolutions can be seen. But I'm saying from language, we're going to go into cyberspace, and we're seeing patterns of that already. Okay, people climbed trees back in the day. Now people, in some sense, you can say they're moving more and more. It's like we're pilgrims. We're 8 billion biological creatures. Slowly, our minds are going on a pilgrimage to becoming more and more cyberspace entities, right? And the reason is because in cyberspace, we will have cultural freedom. In cyberspace, you can be anything. But in reality, you have to deal with what you are, right? So if the more, you can say, hilariously spoiled our species becomes, the more cyberspace is going to come and do everything for us. That means it's like what we don't want to do ourselves, the machines are going to do. Okay? And even if there's corruption, let's say on the other side, there's another algorithm running on the surface of the planet. It's like, yo, it's like, let's say there's selfish algorithms and there's selfless algorithms. Or selfless systems. An algorithm, you could say it's a response to a system, therefore redefinitioning of the system. So rendering it a new system. But anyways, right now our imagination, our discussion, communication, conversation in our inner realms, okay, this is the prototype. Our imagination is the prototype for the type of freedom we want to actualize in cyberspace, right? That means we're going to pretty much have our biological bodies and live normally, probably not do a lot of work. Probably the human life in the future is going to be like watering plants in a garden, but having cyberspace applications that you get your exercise through that. That means a person can literally, I don't know, maybe it becomes a fad in the future to have in your home like this pod in the future, way future, let's say 400 years from now. There's a pod in people's homes, and this pod is filled with some immortalizing fluid. What I mean by that is this fluid is like, it keeps your body, like it has the secrets of fountain, and it's like nanotechnology found the secrets of the fountain of youth, broke into the secrets of the fountain of youth, and let's say somehow this liquid pod keeps your body alive and keeps your muscles. You know what it would be like? It would literally be like being in a circular swimming pool, okay? And your head it's an option, it can be or can't be in the thing. I think it has to be in the water. But pretty much the idea is that your biological body is moving inside a sphere in one spot in the space-time continuum, but you are living through android bodies in multiple ways in the society and civilization. So it would mean a cyberspace replacement for reality. And imagine there was a technology that made it. So technically that would mean there would be no humans in society. All human beings would be in their home, being in this immortal kind of fluid, you know, this immortal swimming pod, you know. You know, this spherical capsule, and excuse me, I forgot to mention this, inside the spherical capsule, imagine like cyberspace connected to their head. So they actually never know and never experience, they know they're inside a capsule, but they don't need to know it, right? So they've keeping it there on the side where the body is living longer. So human beings are living, let's say, thousands of, let's say 3,000 years in these kind of like spherical glass pods in this sci-fi setting I'm creating. And in these spherical pods, it means a human being lives 4,000 years, but they never actually live in the world. They live cyberspace wise in the real world. So that would mean a cyberspace evolution is coming, right? This is the cyberpunk era. This is where a lot of, I would say, archaic revival of shamanic and spiritual mysticism is going to revive here, you know. It's literally, cyberspace is going to be hilarious. It's going to be the metaphysics of the secular society. And it's going to be incredible. It's going to be like the most phenomenal thing to see. A human being, for the first time, taking a responsibility to be simultaneously a biological body and a cyberspace body. Now, my whole view is that we should never touch nature. That means technologies that connect us to cyberspace shouldn't, like this would be the healthy view on it, shouldn't touch the brain. So it would be wave cyberspace. So you go imagine in the future there's an arcade, you go and sit in that arcade, there's a chair, there's a couch, you go sit on that couch, and above your head there's like this giant dish, okay, and you sit in that dish, okay, you're sitting on that chair and the dish is above your head, and the dish is turned on and you're instantly in cyberspace. You don't have to connect anything to your brain. You can use waves. You can translate the information through waves somehow. I'm sure that can happen. So for me, it's again something where the philosophers of the future generations have to really decide if they want something to be in their skull or not. I mean, it's common sense. We don't drink dirty water, but we can't accept technology suddenly in this biological system. Yeah. So beyond the cyberspace, it will go to what I would call the mecha space. Oh no, sorry, I forgot. I totally forgot a phase. From language, there's a geometric evolution. So think of it this way. We evolved to the conscious self, an object, a subject. That means evolution did something strange. An object became a subject to itself. That's what's going on. So this subject now used language and has been defining its realm on language. Then it's going to liberate the separate segmentations, classifications of language with geometry. So geometry, I've said in other talks, it's going to be the next great language of all languages. There's going to be a geometrical evolution. The geometrical evolution is going to pave the way for cyberspace really becoming real. That means we have to become really comfortable with geometry as reality. So geometry has to branch off from mathematics, become its own branch, and mathematics becomes a branch of geometry. I am telling you, geometry is the language of existence. And there is, in my inner realms, I've experienced moments where everything has a geometrical translation. We don't notice it. So there's gonna, from the language era, we're going to the geometrical period, geometrical era, then the cyberspace era, then the mecha era. The mecha era, where I can actually, this is very difficult because I can't say if it's a crossroad from the geometrical era to the mecha or the cyberspace, but I think it's cyberspace. From cyberspace, okay, there may be such an advanced civilization that not only we have endless parallel cyberspace Earths going on, just like how the internet is like a bunch of computers in a house somewhere, like in a group, in a building somewhere. Similarly, it's like we're all these systems. It's as if we'll have cyberspace Earths. In one of my science fiction stories, holy shit, I just remembered there's a programmer named Dante has created a program called HH, Heaven and Hell, and millions of people, more than millions, billions of people in the year, what was it, 5025. They have been trapped in a program that simulated heaven and hell. So I'm telling you, the cyberspace, that's like, we need the generals for those realms are gonna be, those pilots are gonna land in that in their time, you know. There's really nothing to fear in this world. I mean, there is fear, of course. There's value systems, there is love and loss, but there is, at the same time, like when you look at it as an unknown viewer, everything is potential until there's effort. So really, all that the human being and all human beings have been doing is they have been like binary, just moments of effort or no effort. So you first have to have an energetic level of undisturbed effort going on, then whatever you do, it doesn't matter. Eventually you go, it's as if the speed of the treadmill makes you run fast. So anyways, I'll explain the mecha, M-E-C-H-A, the mecha era. Okay, this would be where I said earlier in the talk where machine and man are best friends. This is where we are treating machines as closer and closer and closer to human. You see, you can say that in cyberspace, man is becoming closer and closer to the machine, but in the mecha evolution, it's going to become machine becoming closer and closer to man. And I would say, I can declare that these can be seen as pathways, or they can be seen as phases after one another. And if they are to be seen as phases after one another, I would say mecha evolution is after cyberspace. Cyberspace has to be earlier than mecha. You know, that means we're gonna be fighting in giant robot suits in cyberspace way before we're gonna fight inside them, actually, in the outer realms. Beyond the mecha evolution, we're gonna go to the interstellar era. The interstellar era, I have declared in my own view, and I'm writing a book on this. Hopefully it's gonna be out soon. I think this sabbatical might help it. We're gonna get bored being gods of systems we've created. When that happens, there's gonna be a strange choice accessible for energy. There is There has never been right or wrong. There has just been, I shouldn't say right or wrong, the mold lens is there. Well, I should say there has never been, duality is not in the steering wheel. I will tell you, chaos and order become like little kids when the soul of the moment enters the room. All dualistic based psychology evaporates in the presence of the unknown. And really what it is there is an inner world and there's an outer world. In the outer world, it's collective efficiency. In the inner world, it's the individual's efficiency. Now, if we can find a view of efficiency that breaches the individual behavior and the collective behavior and synchronizes them so that they're not in conflict, let us engineer the most advanced civilization that our grandkids or in the future generations, thousands and thousands of years from now, are going to be like, what did they do in 2020? Oh my God. Like, they're going to freak out, you know? You see, everybody is behaving in accordance to the world they have interpreted, and the world they have interpreted suggests to themselves what they deserve. So people are behaving in ways where they feel they deserve to be behaved to. I'm not joking. It has to, like, when you think about the inner realm, like, a person can just stand waiting in a line and be as, like, you can be yogic AF, you know. Okay. You know, you could be AFK like a yogi suddenly in Samadhi. You know, you could be AFK from the realm of dua. It's like, that's the worst place to go into Samadhi, in a bank line. Can you imagine? It's like, sir, it's your turn, sir. The guy's gone in Samadhi. The guy's not going to move for the next 3 years. He's in the eternal bliss of another dimension. Or the worst place to go in Samadhi is like in a taxi where you haven't told the destination and the guy's driving, you know? And you go into Samadhi and the guy's like, where are you going, sir? And you're just there in Samadhi, you know? And imagine the person in Samadhi is so intense that the taxi driver goes into Samadhi, and then it becomes a health hazard to go Samadhi in public, you know? Oh man, language can honestly stretch anywhere. Care for advancement and you'll find it. There was a quote by Hafiz. He says, this is one thing I have learned, that this life will give every heart what it really yearns for, what it really wants, right? That means deep down, not a want that is conditional, not a want that you're in an environment, the environment's happy so you want it, what the environment wants. It's an unconditional yearning. It's the soul's roar to itself. Like the soul hasn't roared yet in the mind, but with the mind, the soul is growling, right? So the mind is noticing it can roar, right? But it hasn't roared yet, right? And that roar has to be that either self moves world or world moves self. And I realize in this modern age, how can we get people to realize that they can move themselves, and it's an opportunity? And what better word than pilot? We are pilots. We're not believers, disbelievers, whatever kind of bark of dogma, like a wave of sound, wave of information into your ear. It's like everything is new for a being that has never existed before, in the ways that it exerts its efforts that have never existed before. That means when I do something new, I'm like, I look in the mirror and I don't know who that is, and I feel proud about that, you know. But anytime I look in the mirror and I'm like, I exactly know who this is, you know, then I'm done. Then there's nothing to know anymore, you know. Then there is as if like the world was like, I took a snapshot photo of the world, painted it on my wall, you know, laid down and just stared at that painting till the end of time. Like that's what a ideological possession does. It makes you forget that being a human being and the emotional stability even for human life is more important than the language, right? When the language becomes more important than the human experience, you become dehumanized, right? That means you suddenly think you're an angel, you know, or you suddenly think you're a demon, you know. There was you know what I mean? Like this happened, or in Zen, like they would suddenly some dude would meditate and he'd come to the Zen master. I just realized I'm Buddha, man. Like, oh my God, I was Buddha in a past life. And the Zen masters, like 12 other students, said the same thing, man. Just kill the Buddha. That was something the Zen masters would actually say. You know. So what it meant is that let the inner event pass and settle deeper into what your intelligence is, right? Because the biggest question comes, like a lot of people hear the advice, know thyself, but why? Why do you need to know yourself? Why should we even care? Why shouldn't we just be atoms? Why shouldn't we just look at it and be like, yo, that's not a person in pain, that's just elements. Why don't we do that? Because our inner realms have a potential of animating a way more complex system over. So if there is a potential to animate a way more complex system, we look at the outer realms and we're like, oh my God, we can reinvent the civilization. It's the spirit of invention. Somebody has to say it. The spirit of the inventor has not made nature the truth and has not made technology the truth. It has made novelty the permission for the unknown to know again. There was a time I remember I got angry, and in my mind I had this view where I was about to say to the person, like, it's like, do you know who you're talking to? Like that kind of anger energy, right? And in the middle of it, I was like, do I know who I am? Like, in the middle of the pride, in the middle of the ego, in the middle of, yeah, I'm the epitome of power. The person's like, yeah, but there's still unknown variables. What do I do with that? Right? So you could be the most juggernaut of a person, but still, if you don't have the honesty to notice the unknown is here as much as the known, you're weak. And those who chase power, that's what they haven't noticed. And now, in the language phase of evolution that we're in, I would say this is where I would honestly say, when I say a wild guru appeared, you see, it's kind of sad to say, but for now we are helpless creatures. That means the strategy is, it's not going to work out. How do we reduce the chances of it not working out? Right? That's the view. It's not, there's no self-claimed victory. That's why we can't have an ego, because 99.9% of species go extinct. What are we so egotistical about? The only thing allowed to be egotistical is the future, I would say, which must be brought, which must be landed. That means a painter knows the painting is there in the inner realms, but it's the hand and the brush and the paint that bring it. It's the balance. That's the synergy. That's why that's the task of the individual soul, not to brand the whole moment as something, but to realize that the body is the paint, and it's the body's ability to create sound also. So the body is the paint, the mind is the paintbrush, and the unknown soul is the painter. And right now our minds are generating a painting of the world, or endless paintings, the way you like to see it, whether you want to see it like a line or a series of dots. And if a person thinks they're that painting, you will get manipulated, and strangely you thought you probably deep down felt you deserve it, right? Let me tell you why. Because in life, our choices, really, our sincerity is divided here. This is how a person returns to the sincerity resonance. You don't exile a simpler way that you are being to yourself. If the simplest way that you're existing right now is exiled, or you're ignorant of it, the complexity will brand you, will literally try to come and take you. And of course, I'm saying this to animate it in some mystical old school context, but what I mean by that is that you move yourself, or the world moves yourself, right? You see that again, that what was it, Bulbasaur's future self, that like blue turtle in the corner. That blue turtle can move itself, or it can go and lash onto that serpent Pokemon, whatever, and let that move it, right? It can choose to move in the space-time continuum, or it can choose to be moved by the space-time continuum. Now, the space-time continuum doesn't have your eyes, so the outer realms really never knew what to tell you. This is the honesty of it, right? So there has to be a dimension in a person's life where they're fascinated of how their mind's life is happening, and how their body's life is happening. And as they witness that, I will tell you, efficiency is natural. We want freedom, but we're not acting like free beings. That means, who are we wanting this freedom for? Right? If we don't have inner realm freedom, if the person behind their eyes, the world has already failed, like, what can you do in it here then? Right? So if it's like a bunch of soccer players in the middle of a soccer game, and then 3 of the soccer players are like, guys, it's over, we've lost. And they stop moving. And they start sitting down and meditating. And we're like, yo, in the middle of the soccer game, the soccer players thought they failed and went to samadhi. The samadhi is going to tell you, get up. Forces in nature are going to find you and tell you, get up, right? Not everybody has to. This is a sort of like echo of ignorance, where everybody has to go into the mountains to find peace. Like, what is that? You know, peace has nothing to do with the mountains. Peace is how the eyes chose to open to the world. It's a choice, believe it or not. If you're not peaceful by nature, it's a choice. If you're peaceful by nature, it's your nature. It's a choice you made it before you were born, maybe. An advanced communicator realizes even fear is a communication. You know, there's some people who see chaos and they're like, oh my God, they react to it. And there's some people who see chaos and they're like, why is the chaos happening? That question is powerful because it makes you wonder why your order is happening. Dylan says, can you talk about the teaching of the Naga? What do you mean by Naga? Like the fantasy fish creature? Like you mean the mythology of like what like fish, the sirens and Naga represent? What do you mean? Sorry guys, I'm responding to the chat section. People who have no clue there's a chat section might be like, what are you saying, Mr.? Okay, so guys, now everybody can ask questions. I encourage people to ask questions. These live streams happen once in this way in the space-time continuum. Before I go into questions, I'm going to make a few closing statements of why I felt saying this. The ultimate is, where's your attention going as a human being? This is the most important thing to wonder about. It's something that when you really study how your attention is being, you learn from this. You learn from what your attention is, then you can move as it, right? So there is something that anytime a person doesn't know what to do, anytime you don't know where, like, what's going on, it's like wonder about your attention. Like literally like a light beam in a dark room. Where is your attention piloting you? Right? You could be a person in a happy place. You could be a king in a kingdom, imagine, or you could be a peasant on the street, okay, in medieval times, imagine. But that king could be upset. You know, we've had kings that have dreamed of being beggars. You know, that means literally in their palace they've had dreams of being a beggar. You know, and they've freaked out. You know. So when we wonder about where our attention is going, we're wondering about how our attention is being. When we notice how our attention is being, we watch the dualism ascribed to the individual. So we notice the observer, the attention, the unknown observer, and the known observed. What's in the attention, right? Now, the guru is not also an idea where I can completely detach. Like, I'm not trying to make it completely hollow, but it's it's an idea of awareness expressing itself, right? In yogic thought, Swami Krishnananda says religion is God remembering himself, right? So I would say the guru is like the universe remembering itself. Right? So if the universe needs to remember itself conditionally, that means if the guru, like in yogic times, like there's some gurus literally that are doing this still nowadays, right? They put their finger on the person's thumb and like literally like a switch ding, like they liberate the person. Not that that's wrong, but I'm saying like it is an approach, right? But the idea is like we don't glorify the conditional when we're seeking an unconditional truth. This is why, this is the only way I feel a person can really not get sucked into ideological systems that are selling truth. We're in an era where truth is like a thin line. Truth and snake oil are very hard to tell apart. You know, you know. So the strategy is in this space that we doubt, we can't work. So the person has to find a simpler level of looking at the moment where there is no doubt. Right? Now this doesn't mean the guru is the fallacy. The idea is, I'm simply saying that on some level the person is creating what they want to see. On another level, the person who's the guru is also creating what they want to see. Right? So it's two different moments of creation occurring. Right? Now either these minds learn to coexist or the minds dissolve or whatever. Right? So the attitude of human beings should be not to have an obsession over information, but to notice it. Like a bird flying over the forest, not a bird jumping from branch to branch and being like, when am I going to open my wings? So that's the situation, right? So liberate yourself from language worship, right? After we worshipped objects, we started worshiping subjects and we haven't stopped, right? So I would say step out of the linguistic simulation, but it doesn't mean not use it. That means that Tony Stark doesn't live in the Iron Man suit, but when he wants to go where he needs to, he gets in the Iron Man suit, right? So we as human beings should treat language and knowledge not as the ultimate purpose of linguistic knowledge, not as the ultimate purpose of all of this. Do you know what I mean? As something where there's no greater teaching than the explorer's eyes. What greater teaching can there be? So if you want to remain an explorer on a rock in the middle of nowhere, don't let promises take you. I am telling you, it's too, I mean, you can promise anything to anyone and it's 50-50. Do you know what I mean? It's 50-50. You know, that means it's like, this is the whole attitude of it's like 50%, it could have worked, it could have not. But if we want to build an advanced civilization, we can't have inefficient algorithms. So the efficient algorithm is win-win, 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 win-win. That means literally the governments of nations should be like which businesses are winning and the people they're serving are winning also. And they double, like they find a very decent way to check it, check the morality. Imagine they had a morality rank, right? Businesses had a sort of morality checkup or something, reality check. I don't know if that's like there's probably systems out there in the world for that, but I'm saying like, do not let information shape you when you're the one that's moving the information. That's all I'm saying. So anybody could come and say, somebody could come and say, yo, drink this cup of coffee, you're going to be enlightened. And you're going to drink it and you're going to be, and how would you know you're not enlightened? Do you see what I mean? That's how much contentment and fearlessness we should have with the unknown. You know, that means it's as if like the atheist shouted in our ear, do you know? Or let me say it this way, the theist shouted in our ear, you know? It's immaterial, the truth. The atheist shouted in our ear, it's material, the truth. And in the middle of this immaterial and material, we see truth is our door to enter. I'm sorry guys, I'm laughing too loud. I just thought like if aliens in the future come to us human beings and they're like, so how did you guys advance your civilization, right? You know, and we'd be like, hey man, we were on a rock in the middle of nowhere. What else could we do? What else can we do, really? I mean, what greater game to play, you know? No sport comes to close as playing the game of advancing civilization. No game comes to close. No uniform can be worn. It's the only uniform is an honest and sincere mind that cares, that gives a shit about what's going on. Shall we see how advanced humanity will be? Or shall stories endlessly point to the void that we just need to instantly remember? Some people fight for freedom. Some people were free before they were born. It's a freedom before freedom had a definition. It's the unconditional being, regardless of in what condition you're a doer. And so a wild guru can appear, and there are endless gurus appearing in this social sphere of global sphere, you can say. So these gurus are like Pokemon, right? And every person with their own Pokeball of conditioning is hitting it and catching the moment in a certain way, you know? So that's what I'm saying. Let us stop throwing like catching Pokemon, you know, like, you know, there needs to be a point where nature is allowed to evolve as much as man, or man won't evolve. Honor nature and the world will guide you, will become your ally. Dishonor nature's intuitive, I would say nature's decency, and I will tell you, it's like, just like a body gets a wound, white blood cells will appear to come and take care of the situation, you know? Anyways guys, I hope this episode was helpful. I'm going to take a breather and I'll be on the Discord server for those interested. Just blessings. And for anybody who's a guru out there, here's the reason I chose the name Mr. Within, because anything more than that doesn't make sense. You know, it's like, you know, we have moved past it. Again, maybe re-emphasizing what, as Buddha said, they asked Buddha, is there going to be another Buddha? And he's like, Buddhism would have spread so much, there wouldn't be need, right? So I see us, the disciple and guru, evolving into a global kingdom, or not even kingdom, a global effort that is design based. We realize we're 8 billion designers, a designer species, or an advanced communicator species. And there is nothing wrong with teaching, by the way, in the world. Like, there's a lot of teachers who I've learned from. Like, just I've heard what they said, and I've like, okay, that human being looks at the world that way, right? And okay, that other human being looks at the world that way. You know, I consider even philosophers that have long passed also my teachers. They don't know it. They're teachers who they will never know I was their student, but I am technically. I've heard their eyes. So free your attention by studying it. And that's a self-discovery that nobody can tell you how to look at your own eyes, you know. Can you imagine there's a guru in the future, you know, and this guru's name is No. They call him the No Guru. Okay? You know, or the Not Guru, N-O-T Guru. Okay? So this guru, everything they tell him, every person comes and says they're suffering, and this guru's like, yeah, you're not that. And the person's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this man is divine. You know? Then other people come, and every question they ask the guru's like, not this, and the guru can never be wrong. And the guru's doing the greatest service. You know why? Because novelty is reality. Where did the past come from? From some sort of novelty. This thing we're calling reality right now. We imagined it and we didn't change our imagination afterwards, right? The letters of the alphabet didn't change, you know? Can you imagine, instead of Not Guru, we have the guy's name be Enough Guru, you know? And they're like, why, what's your name mean? You know, the guy's like, enough gurus, man. That's his teaching, the Enough Guru's teaching, you know? It's like, just pilot your attention, you know, we're temporary, you know, it's like, even if you get a teaching, you can't hold it, you gotta do something with it. And sometimes a person should have compassion. Like, let's say a person does something wrong in society, okay? It's so easy, sure. You can zoom in on an error and punish that error endlessly. You know, a person can touch a cookie jar and you can, exile them from the kingdom. You know what I mean? Like, it's totally possible, right? You can zoom in and magnify the intensity of an implication, right? But at the same time, we have to have a society where we realize, okay, nobody really knows the future, so people are just trying things out, right? And if people are trying things out, we can't judge it because they don't know what could have happened. But at the same time, responsibility and programs of responsibility are there, right? So there are some things in society a person has to see. You can't have a blind eye to. For example, when you drive, you can't act like, the color green is not green. You can't act like a green light is like a red light, and you can't act like a red light is a green light, you know? So that's the thing. Half the species find one room. Get 8 billion generals and 1/10 to build a strategy. Then build the strategy of the civilization. Every child on this planet should be right now attempting the one and all a problem. What's going to happen 10,000 years from now? Ask this from yourself. Let your mind learn from the future it deserves. You know, that means you can choose to close your eyes again in the movie theater of life, but there are those who say, watch the film, you'll see something you at least couldn't see before. That means it doesn't matter where you are, you can learn something from any moment, you know? I'll be honest, like, there was a moment where I was trying to like synchronize my left hand with my right hand, right? And it was in air, just in thin air, just moving my fingers and trying to see in just air, mid-air, can I just synchronize my fingers together, right? And I noticed, oh my God, for like 5 minutes, I've just been moving my hand. You know, so it was like in the whole effort, there was something where I was seeing deeper dimensions into something, but that was also, it's like I also needed to be, there also needs to be the awareness that grounds, right? So we can't live in the sky now, and we can't live on Earth, so we gotta fly somewhere in the middle for now, right? As a species, until we have the civilization 2.0 and yin yang civilizations being brought more to the global stage, you know. So anyways, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Much blessings and namaste. Now is the only moment we can be free. When else are we going to be free? Now it's like we should be post-freedom era. We're still pre-freedom era.